Vishwapad Paramahamsa Prabhupada Jastothadasar Śrīmad Bhāgavatam Swami Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON Founder-Acharya Prabhupada ki jai. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam Grantha ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 7, The Sacrifice Performed by Daksha, text number 32. Indra Uvacha Idam Apyuchutta Vishwabhavanam Vapurananda Karam Manodrisham Shira Vidvit Chapana Udayuda Ujadande Upapanam Ashtabi Idham Apchita Vishwabhavanam Vapurananda Karam Manodrisham Shira Vidvichapana Udayuda Bhujatande Rupapanam Ashtabi Idham Apyuchata Vishwabhavanam Vapurananda Karam Manodrisham Shura Vidvichapana Udayudha Ujadandha Upapanam Ashtabi
Indra Uvacha Idam Apyachutya Vishwabhavanam Vapurananda Karam Manodrisham
Swami
Indra Uvacha. King Indra said, Idham, this, Api, certainly, Achyuta, O infallible one, Vishvabhavanam, for the welfare of the universe, Vapu, transcendental form, Anandakaram, a cause of pleasure, Manahadrisham, to the mind and the eye, Suravidvid, envious of your devotees, Chakpanai, by punishment, Ud Ayuddai, with uplifted weapons, Ujadandhai, with arms, Upapanam, possessed of, Astibi, with 8. Translation. King Indra said, my dear Lord, your transcendental form, with 8 hands and weapons in each of them, appears for the welfare of the entire universe. And it is very pleasing to the mind and eyes. In such a form, your Lordship is always prepared to punish the demons who are envious of your devotees. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. It is generally understood from revealed scriptures that Lord Vishnu appears with 4 hands. But in this particular sacrificial arena, Lord Vishnu arrived with 8 hands. King Indra said, even though we are accustomed to see your 4-handed Vishnu form, this appearance with 8 hands is as real as the 4-handed form. As Lord Brahma had said, to realize the transcendental form of the Lord is beyond the power of the senses. In reply to that statement by Brahma, King Indra said that even though the transcendental form of the Lord is not perceivable by the material senses, his activities and his transcendental form can be understood. The Lord's uncommon features, uncommon activities, and uncommon beauty can be perceived even by an ordinary man. For example, when Lord Krishna appeared just like a 6 or 7-year-old boy in Vrindavan, he was approached by the residents there. There were torrents of rain, and the Lord saved the residents of Vrindavan by lifting Govardhan hill and resting it on the little finger of his left hand for 7 days. This uncommon feature of the Lord should convince even materialistic persons who want to speculate to the limit of their material senses. The activities of the Lord are pleasing to experimental vision also, but impersonalists will not believe in his identity because they study the personality of the Lord by comparing their personality to his. Because men in this world cannot lift a hill, they do not believe that the Lord can lift one. They accept the statements of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam to be allegorical, and they try to interpret them in their own way. But factually, the Lord lifted the hill in the presence of all the inhabitants of Vrindavan, as corroborated by great acharyas and authors like Vyasadeva and Narada. Everything about the Lord, his activities, pastimes and uncommon features should be accepted as is, and in this way even in our present condition, we can understand the Lord. In the instance herein, King Indra confirmed, your presence with 8 hands is as good as your presence with 4 hands. There is no doubt about it. Now the glasses on so I can see you and the time. Yeah, so very interesting verse here, and very nicely explained by Srila Prabhupada, that Lord Brahma in many different circumstances has spoken this statement that you cannot understand the personality of Godhead by speculation, by the material mind just thinking to its limit of material intelligence. That's speculation. And by gathering knowledge with the material senses and then computing that in a fertile brain and trying to understand. We cannot understand the personality of Godhead like that. And at the same time, for persons with ordinary senses and ordinary mind, they can understand the personality of Godhead, because he literally appears right in front of them. So we would know, if Krishna hadn't appeared 5,000 years ago, just imagine trying to understand, who is God, what God looks like, what he does. You could think about that for billions and billions of years. Do you think you'd ever come up with the image of Krishna, right? If you've never seen Krishna, you think in your wildest dreams, would anyone ever come up? You can't logically work out, yes, you put 1 here, take away the 2, minus the 4. Got it, yeah. 2 arms, peacock feather, Krishna, Radharani, Vrindavan, yeah, all makes sense. So you'd never come to that. So with the material mind and senses, you just can't understand God. That's the point. But if he appears right in front of you and does something like lifts a mountain, with his little pinky, and just stays there smiling for 7 days, and you think, yeah, okay, I can understand God. Like that. See? So, it's quite a... it's a very nice statement. That means what's encouraging for us is it means that any one of us here can understand God if we just literally accept Krishna as he is, according to the statements. I was with a lady the other day who was having some difficulties and some bad dreams. And Prabhupada once said you can, you're having bad dreams, or sometimes there's ghosts and things, you can put a Krishna book or a Bhagavad Gita beside the bed, open. You open it up. And then, that will take away the bad dreams. So I spoke to her over the phone. Then I went to her home, and so I thought I'd check. She said, I've got 2 Gitas. And I thought, that's good. I said, can I have a look? So I had a look at one. She brought out one which she had been using. And in that was by Professor so-and-so, trying to understand, the Bhagavad Gita by his professorship. And, you don't have to look very far and you can see that, you really just have to see his name, Professor such and such, and really you can just, he's disqualified. Bhakta so-and-so, yeah, so-and-so Dāsa, possibly. So anyway, he You know, this impersonal understanding that God is working through Krishna and Arjuna to help us to understand the Supreme. Like that. Not that Krishna is God. How could Krishna be God? He's the boy with two arms and peacock feather. So obviously you can't take that literally. So obviously, God must be working through him. So that's his. So I said to her, that book is useless. It has no value. So she said, oh, well, I have another one. So she brought out, and there was Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. Very old book, but Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. Without the Sanskrit. So I gave her another one with the Sanskrit. And I explained to her the difference that we just accept Krishna as he is. It's not that God is working through that form. That form is the form of the personality of Godhead. Every time we take birth, because we're different from our body, we take birth in a different body. But whenever Krishna comes, he comes as Krishna in that form. So, 40 million years ago when he spoke to the sun god, Krishna is a two-handed form, Krishna. Once in the day of Brahma, Krishna will come, and he always comes as Krishna. So it's an eternal form. And that form, of course, is, within each and every universe. Our body is constantly changing, but, the nature of spirit, as described in the, this is, it's an interesting concept, but, these scholars, can I get a Bhagavad Gita? Is there a Gita in the house? These scholars try to understand Bhagavad Gita, but what is clearly stated, thank you, in the Gita, even in the introductory lessons, that they cannot understand. And then they move on to, describe Krishna. So, some of the nice verses in the second chapter, where Krishna explains, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. So Krishna is explaining that we're all unchangeable. But he does explain to Arjuna that, he comes, not according to karma getting a material body, but he just comes in his own self manifest form, which is, composed of Satchidananda Vigraha, the spiritual energy. So, as we go through the Gita, Krishna gives these understandings of spirit. For the soul there is neither birth nor death at any time. He does not come into being. He has not come into being, does not come into being, will not come into being, is unborn, eternal, ever-existing, primeval, not slain when the body is slain. And it describes a little further on that in verse 24, that the spirit soul is stanu, or unchangeable. So that which is spirit is unchangeable. So Krishna explains that he has descended by the spiritual energy, not by the laws of karma, but by the spiritual energy in his spiritual form, transcendental form. So if he has a transcendental form, then we understand it is unchangeable, within any place or any course of time. So the Gita is explaining that we're taking birth according to the modes of material nature, getting material bodies. That is clearly explained. The soul is going from one body to another. Krishna is the control of the material energy He's not under the laws of karma. He's not forced to accept a material body. And when he descends according to his spiritual energy, and the spiritual energy is described very clearly as being unchangeable. Like that. So actually, even young children, 4 or 5 years old, if you say to them that we live forever, we're not the body will change, but ourselves as an individual person, we are unchangeable. We will always be this individual person, and we never change. So even a little child can understand that the soul, which is different from the body, does not change. So, as you can see, it doesn't take a lot of intelligence actually to understand Krishna is unchangeable, the soul, we are unchangeable, different from the body. It doesn't take, even a little 4 or 5 year old child can actually understand that. So then you get these great scholars, professors, who cannot understand it. And that is because there's a little trick happens in their mind. A little something, instead of just thinking clearly, they do a little something fancy. Prabhupada calls it over-intelligent. I love that word, over-intelligent. People have too much intelligence for their own good, over-intelligent, and of course, if you're over-intelligent, you end up doing something foolish or thinking. So they're over-intelligent. They do that. So instead of just thinking in a very straightforward way, as a child would, just using their intelligence in a very natural way, they think, no, I'm so intelligent, I would think in a slightly crooked way. So, Prabhupada mentions here in the swapping glasses, in the purport, that he says, the activities of the Lord are pleasing to experimental vision also, but impersonalists will not believe in his identity because they study the personality of the Lord by comparing their personality to his. Because men in this world cannot lift a hill, they do not believe that the Lord can lift one. See? So that's what they add, that here is Krishna lifting a hill. This is accepted by all the scriptures. Narada Muni, Vyasadeva, the compiler of all the scriptures, Arjuna, all the great acharyas. But because I'm a little more intelligent, I cannot lift a hill, therefore, and he looks a lot like me, 2 arms, 2 legs, he cannot lift a hill. And by that, they cannot understand, even though they have so much knowledge. See? They're quite capable to understand what a 5-year-old boy does, but by that, they cannot understand. So, and that anomaly within their consciousness, that is the difference between having the blessings of the Lord and not. Okay? So today, of course, is Sarasvati Puja, Sant Panchami. So I did a little, there was one out of all the children in Melbourne, one come along to begin their first education, so intelligent parents, and we did a ceremony upstairs in Prabhupada's room, very auspicious, to get the blessings of Divya Sarasvati. So that's the difference. without the blessings of the Lord and his Shakti, Divya Saraswati, she just won't allow a simple understanding to manifest within even the most intelligent person. And they just do, she puts some little trick in their mind and just stays there until they get the blessings of that. So, and of course we understand that, Shastakam. How does that start? Chaitadapana Marjanam, Baba Mahadavaram Nivapanam, Shreyakarava Chandikavachanam, Vidya Varu Jivanam. Vidya. Vidya, another Divya Saraswati or Vidya. The consort of the holy name is the transcendental. All the Shaktis of the Lord are there within the, all his multifarious energies are there within the holy name, including Divya, Vidya, the wife, Vijayavadu, the wife of the holy name, or the consort of the holy name. The Shakti of the holy name is transcendental knowledge. So by chanting Hare Krishna, you chant Hare Krishna, and Divya Saraswati, the Lord's potency by which one can understand properly spiritual subject matters, then that will be there even within a small child, that will be there. And if one does not have the shelter of the personality of Godhead and the blessings of the Lord's Shaktis, then one is capable of understanding, but the little tricks in the mind put there by the material energy, and one just thinks in a foolish way, even though they're capable of thinking in the proper way. And this is Srila Prabhupada noticed also when he was in India and he was trying to preach Krishna consciousness, that, if he would say, present Krishna as a personality of Godhead, they will immediately bring so many gods, or practically anyone but Krishna. And then he came to the West, and you've got these hippies, some of them sort of, absorbed in the LSD culture, and they've never heard of the Vedas. There's no Sanskrit understanding, there's no Varnashram, there's no purification, there's no samskaras, there's no religious activities, there's nothing. Deep in the modes of tamaguna. And yet somehow or another, Prabhupada says Krishna is God, and because there's no other things, that they're adding to that within their mind, Krishna is God, I've got my 2 ears, I heard that, he lifted the Govardhana hill, thank you very much, Krishna is God, I know. See? Prabhupada would chant Hare Krishna, they would hear Hare Krishna, they would get the immediate blessings of the transcendental energies of the Lord, and they would immediately understand. So, so it's an interesting statement by Indra that, yes, you cannot understand. So quite often we can put the understanding, because we know it's very difficult to understand spiritual matters because they're inconceivable. Even thinking of the soul is described as inconceivable. That is also there in that same verse I read, I think 24 from Bhagavad Gita. Even the spirit soul, the individual spirit soul, is inconceivable. Eternal. We live forever. There's no beginning, there's no end. So, we know that energy is conserved. Even the the material scientists, they understand that. Energy is, if you actually ask them about the beginning of creation, they have to come back to this point where they admit that the material energy must have been always there in some form or another. So now they're trying to revise their Big Bang. You know, they say there's the Big Bang, and they understand, because Prabhupada pointed out, if there's a Big Bang, what set it off? And they're understanding by actually looking at the science they have, that actually there was an energy previous to the Big Bang which did accentuate, set off the Big Bang. So there was like a prelude bang. And what they understand now is that actually they say that it appears with all the science they have that it is a constant, there is this cycle where these, big bangs where perhaps, there's a significant change which does form, universal planets and what have you, and things take a little bit of shape. But ours is not the only universe. Previously they're saying ours was the only universe. Now they're saying that actually this is repeating itself and there are many universes. So they're admitting that, and that this Big Bang factor is actually that there is a movement within the material energy which is creating, suddenly there's appearance of a universe and like that. So every time they get more and more information, they actually come closer to the Vedic conception. And actually the modern scientists, a lot of the famous scientists that are, functioning now, their guru is like Carl Sagan, who was one of the, original, very famous cosmologists. And Carl Sagan, he said then that all the knowledge that we have now scientifically leads us to understand that the Vedic conception of creation and annihilation as a repeating process is actually perfectly fits all the science we have. And now the scientists with more knowledge are not only saying that one universe is being created, but a multitude. So they're actually even getting closer to the Vedic conception of that. So, this come back to this point that they have to admit that the material energy is always there. You won't get back to a point where there's nothing. That doesn't make sense to anyone, not even the scientists. That you go back in time and there's not even an energy of, just a complete void. Then how do you get something from nothing? That doesn't make sense. So they have to admit that they're not sure. It's somewhere in a state of equilibrium. Something must activate it. What is that? Actually, we did a project for Varunis. You had to sum up a little bit about the creation of the universe. I remember doing that with my other daughters when they went through university. Every time they did something, say the universe or evolution, I would actually put these things in orders. So, but they admit that the material energy must be there permanently. You can't get something. But when you say the soul, the spiritual energy is also eternal, oh no, we can't. Nothing's real. See? So again, just this little anomaly in their consciousness, which what is perfectly logical. Yes, something can be there forever. It must have always been there. It makes perfect sense. Oh yeah, the spiritual energy is the same. It's always been. Oh, don't be ridiculous. Don't give me your myths and your Hinduology and your religious sort of hocus pocus. I'm a scientist. So you see, it's just a little trick of the mind by which they just can't understand even things that they're capable of understanding. And without the blessings of the personality of Godhead, therefore, we greatly value this chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. That if we just allow people to chant Hare Krishna and read Gita as it is, which just presents Krishna exactly as Krishna presented himself. The problem with all these philosophers and pundits and what have you is they're speaking their philosophy. over the top of Krishnas with these little anomalies in their brain which is full of cow dung, and they're putting that over the top of the Gita, and therefore you can't hear what Krishna's saying. Prabhupada says, let Krishna speak for himself. Just let Krishna take your nonsense speculation and your commentary. Yeah, put that aside. Let Krishna just speak for himself. Bhagavad Gita. Then you'll learn. And if you chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, take a little Krishna Prasadam, then people will get Krishna as himself, and even what a little child can understand, if they haven't got some strange things going on. If they're, Bhaktivedanta says that actually material education can make one more like an ass, more like a fool. The further one becomes educated, one picks up these strange ideas that makes one very foolish. So, here is a statement by Indra and Srila Prabhupada, and through this understanding, therefore, we are distributing this transcendental knowledge to the masses. Prabhupada used to just have the devotees still, because he's still directing us, guiding us, watching over us. We distribute Krishna books on the street. This knowledge within the Krishna books, not to speak of the Gita, Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Krishna books, summary of the 10th canto. The highest spiritual understanding the spirit soul, the material energy, the personality of Godhead, all his incarnations, his Shaktis, how his Shaktis are working to manifest the different spiritual varieties and consciousness and understanding and blissful activities. And the Vrindavan pastimes, where the eternal relationship, see, Bhagavad Gita teaches the eternal relationship of the soul with the Supreme Soul. And that eternal relationship, in its most highest form, the loving reciprocation, the uncommon activities between the soul and the Lord and his spiritual energies manifest as these uncommon, beautiful, loving pastimes, blissful pastimes, ever expanding, of the highest, most intense nectarian magnitude. Very, very, the most elevated level of spiritual understanding that we are distributing on the streets to the common person, according to this philosophy spoken by Indra. That it is possible even for the common person, if they can chant Hare Krishna, take a little bit of prasadam. If you look at Krishna and he's lifting the Govardhan hill, you think, well, that's, he'd have to be God, wouldn't he? No ordinary person could do that. Who can lift a hill, like that? If someone said, so there's the scriptures are saying he's God, well, there he is lifting a hill. It's good enough for me. And then in the Gita, Krishna is saying, yes, I am the personality of Godhead. And then Arjuna is accepting, Vyasa is accepting, the compiler of all the Vedic literatures. So, on the basis of this, we are Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what's even more amazing is that the Vrindavan pastimes of the highest level of spiritual, loving relationships between the living entities and the personality of Godhead. In Vrindavan, they are so inconceivable that God himself can't understand it. I've reached my limit. I cannot understand that when Radharani and expansions, the gopis, when they're loving me, what are they experiencing? They're loving, what are they experiencing? And when I love them in return, what do they experience? And what is the nature of that love? What sort of sweet love is there within the heart of Radharani and the gopis? For that, even God had to have some extended pastimes to investigate, to taste that. And that is the Chaitanya Leela. And we're distributing that. Even the pastimes that the Lord himself finds inconceivable, we're distributing on the streets to the mass of people based upon the fact that, God is just presenting himself as it is, and if you just see it as it is, and you've got no sort of cow dung in your head, you'll just be able to accept it straight away. So this is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement. Strictly following, and people may criticise what we're doing, then they'll have to take issue with the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, because we are strictly following, the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. If they say you cannot give this, they are not qualified. No, according to Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, we're doing perfectly. They may have trouble because they are, not necessarily presenting Krishna as he is. We are presenting Krishna as he is, and therefore there's no difficulty. So I'll just leave it there if anyone has any comments or questions they'd like to ask.
Just take you up on your last.
Yep.
So we understand that Lord Chaitanya based his teachings on Bhaktivedanta and Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. But can you perhaps expand a little more proof about Bhagavatam?
A little bit more proof. Right, so authenticate Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Yeah. So, yeah, someone's already done the work for us. Jiva Goswami, in his Tattva Sandarbha, that's the 6 philosophical discussions. And in the first one, in order to discuss the science of the personality of Godhead Krishna, his Shaktis, the living entities, the material energy, the process of devotional service, and love of God, in order to discuss that, he first has to establish the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, which is, the main source for, that understanding. And so in the first Sandarbha of Jiva Goswami's Sandarbha, what Jiva Goswami does is he takes all the quotes from the Vedas themselves. Right? So the 4 Vedas, Upanishads, Puranas, Mahabharata, and from all of those scriptures established very firmly that Śrīmad Bhāgavatam is the topmost, supreme literature, which is the commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, or the essence of all Vedic knowledge. So that's where you find that. And as far as I understand today, even in India, different parts, I know Prabhupada mentions it in some of his lectures, so whether it's there today, I'm not sure, but there are sections of universities there dedicated to Jiva Goswami's works, which are highly praised by the greatest pundits and scholars. And there, it's a very long, and he very firmly establishes, one, by presenting the authenticity of the Bhagavatam from all the scriptures and the Bhagavatam itself, and then by presenting the qualifications of Vyasadeva and the time that he wrote the Bhagavatam, which he wrote in his maturity after compiling all the others, after his perfect, self-realization, which also confirms that. And then he also confirms it by the qualification of Sukadeva Goswami, the topmost. By presenting, here is the speaker, the compiler of Bhagavatam. How will you get above Vyasadeva? And this is his final word on all his writings. So take it from Vyasadeva. Here is Sukadeva Goswami. You will not get a transcendental sage above this level. He is, and he was an impersonalist in the beginning, and he is accepting Śrīmad Bhāgavatam as the essence. And Sutta Goswami as well, presenting him. Here is Sutta Goswami, the professor of all the Puranas, and he is accepting, as the Puranas themselves accept, that Śrīmad Bhāgavatam is the topmost literature. So that is there, it's quite a very thorough description.
I have two questions. We know Krishna has 2 arms, Vishnu has 4 arms, here it says 8 arms.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how many arms are there more?
Oh, 10? Well, it's a bit like the Purusha Shukta. The Purusha Shukta is the universal form, but his form extends just a few inches beyond the universe to let you know that there's always more. And Krishna is like that. He reveals to us to a certain degree, but he does let us know that there's always more. No matter how far our intelligence, material intelligence will go, Krishna is always at least 2 inches more than that. So Prabhupada explained that when Mother Yashoda, tried to capture Krishna, so like the materialists, the speculators, they try to capture Krishna in their limited mind, or the yogis. They cannot capture Krishna. Mother Yashoda was trying to bind Krishna. So it appears, here's this, just an ordinary little boy. He's bringing rope, tying, bringing more rope. And Krishna was always 2 inches too much. So Prabhupada explains that Krishna's intelligence, his potencies, his always 2 inches at least more than that. So, Krishna presents, we get, we've seen the 4-arm form, and it shows 8 arms. But in the universal form, thousands and thousands of arms. So, but again, those arms extend just a few inches beyond the universe, which means that they're not contained within the universe, they can extend beyond the universe itself. So in this way, Krishna shows us that, we just know that there's always more. There is no limit. And here Krishna appeared with 8 arms. There are specific reasons. He could have come with 2 weapons. He's come with 8 arms. He's come with extra weapons. There was a big problem here. Or you want to do battle? Want to do battle with my devotees? Yeah, I got 2 weapons. Today I'm bringing 8. But, I can bring more. So, Krishna's just letting them know. I usually come in my 4-arm form. You think, we've caused so much trouble. Vishnu will come in his 4-arm form with, conch and the lotus and a couple of weapons. Perhaps we can deal with that. You can deal with that? We'll deal with this. Okay. So, yeah.
What would you say about Saraswati? So Saraswati is energy of Lord, and you say it is a Vasant Panchami. Can you please elaborate, what is the significance of this?
Well, today is the, for different reasons, it is there's the appearance day of many of our great acharyas, I think Raghunath Das Goswami and disappearance of Vishwanath Chakrabarti the core, and so many different personalities and shaktis of the Lord. I can't remember them all. Might be Vishnu Priya and different shaktis of the Lord, including Saraswati. So the Lord and his it is a special day for worshipping the Shakti of the Lord, including Saraswati, but other Shaktis have taken their appearance today as well. And today is, like in India, the first day of spring, and so the Lord is, worshipped very elaborately with extra seasonal flowers, So and especially if you can find flowers that have a nice scent, that is Bhu Shakti, the scent of the earth. So Bhu Shakti is nicely represented. So on this day, people will worship the deity of Krishna more elaborately, but especially with lots of seasonal flowers with beautiful scents. And those flowers and scents and what they're a symbol of the Lord's Shaktis, his opulent energy and beautiful energy like that. So Saraswati is one of the Shaktis. So Divya Saraswati, the transcendental spiritual energy of transcendental knowledge, awarding transcendental knowledge. Her shadow potency, the demigod, goddess Saraswati, the wife of Brahma. She is there. Generally people may worship her. But Lord Brahma's wife is the representative in this world of Divya Saraswati, the transcendental spiritual knowledge potency. Any other questions? Yeah.
As we know, Krishna lifted the devotee, and in past years we can see that there were personalities who lifted the hills, like Lord Hanuman, he lifted the hills, and he flew from Himalaya to Sri Lanka just in one night in the hill. As well as there are beings like Ravana, he lifted the Himalaya from Kailash. So how can we understand, especially when Indra wanted to face whether Lord Krishna is real supreme personality of Godhead or it's just an ordinary cloud of God?
Yeah, well, there is correlation, that sometimes by the grace of the Lord, sometimes Krishna's devotees all do something quite wonderful. Or Krishna in his various expansions, all his incarnations do something uncommon that is only possible by the personality of Godhead. Comparably, when we compare what Krishna did to others, Krishna's manifestation of strength, beauty, knowledge, etc., as Bhagavan, is the most fullest manifestation amongst all the expansions of the Lord, and certainly with personalities like Hanuman, different devotees who may do something quite wonderful. Bhagavan, Vyasadeva refers to Krishna as Bhagavan, Sri Krishna. He who is the possessor of 6 opulence, all 6 in full. So, we see that Hanuman certainly manifested, extraordinary pastimes, but comparably, Krishna manifested all 6 opulences in full above any other manifestation of the Lord. Apart from that, Vyasadeva, the compiler of the all Vedic knowledge, giving the conclusion that when Krishna states that he is the personality of Godhead, this is accepted by Srila Vyasadeva, the compiler of all the Vedic literatures. In the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, we get a synopsis of the pastimes of Lord Ram, and Srila Vyasadeva, and so Hanuman is there as well. But Srila Vyasadeva is not presenting Hanuman as the personality of Godhead. He's presenting Krishna as the Samabhava personality of Godhead. So the scriptures presented by Srila Vyasadeva, similarly in the Ramayana, Valmiki is not presenting Hanuman as the personality of Godhead. He is presenting Ram, who is non-different from Krishna, as the personality of Godhead. And we see that Hanuman definitely takes the position of the servitor of the Lord. How do we know that from Gita? What's that? He's on the flag, he's on Arjuna's flag. He's come to render service to Krishna, who is non-different from Lord Ram. Why is Hanuman there? If Krishna is not Ram, why is he there? He is there because Ram is there in the form of Krishna. And just as Arjuna is fighting as Krishna's servant, Hanuman is fighting as Krishna's servant. It's very plain to see. As we say, even a 5-year-old child could understand that. Hanuman has come to serve Krishna. Krishna, Arjuna is fighting as a servant of Krishna. So, it's within a few minutes, it's not difficult to present, the proper conclusion that certain personalities are the servant of the Lord. Krishna is the personality of Godhead, and he is not different from Lord Ram, which is exhibited by Hanuman on the flag of Arjuna's chariot. Say that again, the last part. Yeah, Tattva Sandhava, that's the first of the Sandhavas. He takes the statements from the Vedas, the Puranas, and Bhagavatam itself, which confirm, one, that the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam is authentic. It's not something that's added. It's part of, and that it is the essential highest teaching. So he's taken that knowledge, and then he also presents how Srila Vyasadeva, Sukadeva Goswami and Sudha Goswami, by their qualifications also proves that the literature they're presenting, in the circumstances they're presenting of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, presents it as the topmost literature as well. But the whole book is dedicated to that first. You read that? Yeah. So the whole book is literally just establishes the authenticity of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. And he'll take each statement there and then help us to understand that, just to make sure we've got it in proper context and make sure that no one can add a little something from their fertile brain to those statements. So he'll elaborate on it to make sure we get it. There's the statement from the scripture about Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Make sure you understand that, and here is further references to, so that it's in the proper context of what it's actually saying. So you can't change it, and then he'll move on. So very nicely done. And done. So he has established the authenticity of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam as the topmost authority, spiritual authority of the Vedic literatures, to present the understanding of Bhagavan, his Shaktis, the living entity, material energy, the process of liberation, and pure love of God. So all of these established after establishing the authority of Bhagavatam. Did you have a question? No, that's it. Any? John? Hare Krishna.